So here with us is Barnaby Jones, here to talk about the cryptic creatures and other things. Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you grew up?
Sure. My name is Barnaby Jones. I am a cryptozoologist. I am the founder and lead investigator for Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society. We are based in the middle of Wisconsin, and I also am the host of two podcasts, Whispers from the Dark and Monday Morning Monsters, which is all cryptozoology. So I grew up, I was born in California, but I
Hmm.
actually spent my entire life in about Appleton, Wisconsin, and I'm still living around that area, the Fox Valley of Wisconsin. So born and raised, well, not born, but raised, grew up all right here in Wisconsin. But I've traveled all over the United States almost. There's only a couple states that I haven't been to, and I've been to zoos in almost every state that I've gone to. I think I'm down to five or six states, North and South Carolina, Florida, Louisiana, Montana, and Washington, I think are the only states continental that I haven't been to yet. So, and I'll be
Wow,
in South Carolina and North Carolina in March. So,
damn. Yeah, you're all over the place. Tell me more about when you started getting into the cryptic creatures or wanting to go study yourself. Did you have a personal experience yourself that like got you really wanting to explore more?
unfortunately, no. I started out the earliest I can remember like being interested in all this stuff was back in elementary school, fifth or sixth grade. I can't remember right now, but it was the 90s, and that's when all the chupacabra reports were coming out of Puerto Rico and Mexico and stuff. And I remember doing an entire research paper on El Chupacabra.
Hmm.
And throughout middle school and high school, I did a lot of paranormal investigating and research and stuff on that, and just kind of got into it. I always wanted to be a cryptozoologist, and I just, when you're going to spend a lot of money on a degree in zoology or biology or anything like that, you have to have a job that's going to pay, right? And zoologists, by statistics, it is easier to get a job on an NFL football team than it is to become a zookeeper, because
Huh.
there's such a high turnover in the NFL as opposed to, people that become a zookeeper are a zookeeper for life. And there's a very limited number of zoos out there. So that kind of stunted me from going into zoology and that for a long time. And I've still been interested in around the early 2012 area. I did a seasonal Halloween haunted house, and we moved into a haunted location,
Hmm.
and we had a lot of experiences there in this building throughout the years that we had the haunted house there, and we did investigations there, and that kind of kept things up. In 2019, I ended up going up to the Hayden Adventure in Upper Michigan, which is 80 acres of private property that was hunting land for Craig and his wife Barb Sulk, and they got a trail camera photo of what they believe is a Bigfoot. They sent it into Finding Bigfoot. Finding Bigfoot came out and did an investigation, and they ended up opening up their property to people to come and hear the stories and see the evidence that they captured on the property. And in 2019, myself and my mom went up there and we took the tour, met Craig, and he introduced me to the fact that there's all this stuff in Wisconsin. And I started reading Linda Godfrey's books, and she led me down to southern Wisconsin and the Burlington Woods. First time that we ever went down there, myself and Derek went down and we just parked in this parking lot outside these woods. And we started hearing like branches cracking and stuff as like something was coming towards us, like something big was moving towards us. And I had this huge spotlight in my car, and I aimed it along the wood line up on the hill there, and something was holding down a branch, like looking out at us. And as my light came over and hit it, the branch popped back up, and like it ducked back in the woods. And it was then that we're like, all right, something's going on here because there's supposed to be Bigfoot, there's supposed to be fairies, dogman, all kinds of weird stuff in these woods. So we're like, all right, we're gonna get a, I went back home and I always tell people don't go into woods at night if you don't know where you're going and stuff. And there's a trail obviously in these woods, but it was the first time we ever been down there and we didn't know this or anything. So we're like, now we'll come back. I went back home and I talked to a bunch of my friends that were interested in this, and we took a group of 5 people down to the Burlington Woods, and we found a footprint, a small, it could be humanoid, human size, but it was a barefoot footprint, a series of tracks that went back from the woods in the exact spot where we had saw that branch move. So something was watching us. So that's how Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society was formed. We started those people, and we started working in the Burlington Woods. We started getting more and more evidence, more and more things like that came out of there. We got thermal image of what we believe is a Bigfoot down there. And we're like, well, we got all this audio, all this video. What do we do with this? Do you write a research paper? What do you do? So I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna put together a like documentary and put it out on YouTube, and that's what I did. I did that as the first one, and then we started doing more of the premise is if cryptids, anomalies, and paranormal are all connected somehow, and if they are, how. So that's what our group's basis is. So we started looking into locations of urban legends and trying to find out if these places were based on something that actually happened there, or did something happen there because of high energy or what they call these window areas, right? So we started looking into those. Well, while we're researching all this, I wanted to keep people interested in us. So I ended up releasing our second ever episode is all the footage that we had from our investigations into my haunted house that we had. So I went and I interviewed all my actors and my team members from there, and I put together the second episode. And then the third episode came out. That was all, excuse me, was all the urban legend stuff that we did, and then that led us to the Paulding Light, and it's just kept going from there. So there you go. That was a very long-winded explanation.
No, I'm so glad you went with that. That is that was awesome. And how many are in your team? Did your team get bigger over time?
Oh yeah.
And I see that your and your mother too is interested in the
Mhm.
subject. That is so cool. Like your mom is down to go and check out these places with you. Um, I'm all about that. And my family's been very supportive of with my hobbies and stuff like that too. And it was a pleasure to actually get to be a part of your project that's
Mhm.
gonna be coming out next summer.
Yep,
Um,
this summer coming up.
yeah, I'm excited for that. So yeah, people get to see some of my photographs and the location where I had my setting. And yeah, no, I'm really excited, and it was an honor to be a part of that. So thank you.
Yeah, you mentioned my mom. My mom is actually the only person on the team to have actually seen a Bigfoot with her eyes.
Oh shit. Okay.
She actually saw two, we believe. The first one would have been up at the Hayden Adventure in Upper Michigan. We did a lot of research. I didn't get into that, but after the Paulding Light and stuff, we ended up doing a lot more research with the Hayden Adventure, and she actually got to see one we believe come up behind her and stand at the end of a carport. And yeah, so that's on one of our Finding Hayden episodes on YouTube as well. You can hear the story and see that. And then the second one is out as well. That was down in Kentucky. We were actually going to Portal 31, which is a coal mine museum and tour. And you can go down in this coal mine and stuff. And we had got there early in the morning, right? Like, right as, the sun was coming up and everything, and super early. And we parked and we were going to shoot like some B-roll of the outside and the surrounding area and that. And she's standing next to the cars. I'm getting equipment out, and she goes, I just saw a Bigfoot cross the road. And we go into that a little bit in that episode, and then the next episode, which is Bigfooting with Turtle Man, we go and we actually show you where it happened and some of that, and then we eventually go on to talk to Turtle Man and hear his stories and go Bigfooting with him. So
That's
yeah.
so cool. I was gonna say that's one of my I like that's one of my favorite episodes from you guys. Actually going the ghost episode when you guys go into the mine, and then like
Yep.
right before you guys go in there, she had that sighting and you're like,
Mhm.
whoa, that's crazy. Then I did see that other episode where you guys actually go back and you went and said, I'm gonna go over here and see where exactly where
Mhm,
you saw him, and that's really interesting. And you
mhm.
maybe saw a footprint too. That's pretty
Yeah.
interesting.
Hmm.
But yeah, the Turtle Man too. That was pretty
Hmm.
interesting. He's pretty wild.
Oh yeah, that was
Just his
definitely a fun day.
just his character for sure.
Let's stick with Bigfoot for a while. And just to
Mhm.
clarify, I myself, I am not a big Bigfoot enthusiast, and my knowledge about it is very basic. And therefore, please excuse if my questions are perhaps a little bit naive. Dustin and I, we were talking about cryptids yesterday, and we were talking about if there's Bigfoots out there, there must be a population. And there also has to be different bloodlines so that there's no inbreeding or something.
Mhm.
So I think that Bigfoots from different populations would have to meet in order to mate, to keep the bloodline clean. What do you think? Why is it so hard to find Bigfoot?
There's a lot of theories on that. So your bloodline question, to my understanding, a lot of the species like lions and stuff like that, and other great apes and that, they don't have as big a problem with the inbreeding as other species. So it doesn't take such a big population. In fact, like purebred dogs and stuff, the closer you get to the purebred, the better and stronger that species actually is. So it's possible that you would not need a huge population to maintain the clear bloodline and stuff. But I'm not 100% sure on all that, but I do know that there are certain species that don't. So it's possible as far as that. As far as why we can't find them, there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of stories, with the Native American tribes and stuff and legends there. And they were supposed to be like the big brother, like our big brothers of the woods, and that the natives used to get along with these and live in harmony with them. And what happened was, for whatever reason, one of them like was kidnapping the children or the women of the tribes, and that made the tribes angry. So they ended up chasing them off and killing these creatures, and they ended up being banished up to the mountains. And that's why a lot of the tribes call them the ridge walkers, because they're up in the hills and the mountains and stuff, because they were just forced out. So you can imagine that if, these tribes are hunting you down and killing you now, you're going to avoid humans at all cost, because these things have a history of threatening you. Animals are not scared of people, originally. There has to be something that triggers that. So if these things are as intelligent as, we believe they are and everything, it would make sense that if there is that past, that learned knowledge of being afraid or being hunted by us, that they would avoid us. There's a lot of other speculation too, as far as, like the military involvement in that they avoid humans because humans actively go out and try and hunt them, you know and the military tries to get rid of them, or whatever it is that they're doing. So there's a lot of stuff there.
But bears also
Mhm,
are hunted by humans, and they
mhm,
also keep away from humans, but though we find them.
mhm.
How intelligent do you think these creatures are?
Pretty intelligent. To the point of bears, I'll tell a story here. From up at the Hayden Adventure, we have gone up there numerous weekends. In 2020, we spent almost every weekend from May until December up there, every single weekend. We know that there are black bear on the property. They hunt the black bear, they bait the black bear. There are trail cameras all over that property. And within a 15-minute time frame, there are pictures of my team at a trail camera and a black bear at that trail camera. And I personally, and no one on my team, has personally seen a black bear on that property. And we know that they're there. We know they're there.
Okay.
Okay. So, I mean, and that's just one thing, as far as like why other reasons, there's a research done of tigers over in Asia and India. And they put up these trail cameras on the trees, and the tigers would literally come up from behind the tree, reach around, and claw the crap out of these cameras to disable them. And they learned this because obviously they knew that these tigers were there. I think there's a lot more evidence, a lot more video trail cam experiences out there that people are just afraid to share. And for like, let's say if you guys had or if I have a Bigfoot on my property and I get a trail camera picture of one, right? Now, if I let that out there, everyone's going to think that I'm crazy, that, oh, you have this, yeah, whatever, but no, I have it really. And another thing is then you're going to get the other side of the people that want to come on the property. I want to see it. I want to come out there, trespass, do whatever. Now you're going to have those people on your property. And you also have these hunters that are going to be, the nut jobs that are out there that are just trying to kill these things and, prove that they're real, are going to want to come on that property and do that. It draws a lot of attention, a lot of ridicule. And the average person just does not want that. If these things come out that they are real, which we know that they are, that, and it becomes this species that everyone is aware of, there's going to be a lot more people coming forward and saying, yeah, I have these pictures. I've seen one and stuff. Look at Sasquatch Chronicles. There's an entire podcast dedicated to just sightings of these creatures, and even if 50%, even if 75% of those people are making up the story or whatever, that's still 25% of those are legit sightings. How do you reconcile that? How do you, where did these footprints come from? There's too much substantial evidence to say that this is not a real thing. I don't know what it is, but there is something that people are seeing.
No, I was gonna say too, like Wisconsin had that discovery back in like the early 1900s of two kids went into a cave and found 18 fully erected skeletons of giants, like 9 feet tall. And I think they were at the Chicago Museum just for a little bit until the public started really freaking out about them, and they put them back in the back room, and who knows what happened to them. Do you think there might be some links to the giants in the past that have been reported to the now sightings of Bigfoot?
Well, that's a good question. I've thought about that a lot. There's actually two different things going on there, because there's also, along with these big brother creatures that the natives talk about, there's also the red-haired giants.
Mhm.
And the red-haired giants were a lot more of a industrialized people. They were found all over Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, and down into Illinois, I believe, as well. This race, and they were found in all these mounds, the mound building people and stuff, and they were buried all over this area. Now, the issue with that, though, is from the reports of these things, they have 6 fingers and a double row of teeth. And there is no handprint data set of a 6-fingered Bigfoot. And everyone that has seen them, yell at them, growl at them up close and personal, no one has ever reported double rows of teeth in these Bigfoot. Now, there is some speculation that the double row could indicate like molars, where you see the molars of the double row in the back or stuff like that, that they're just a misrepresentation. But the other thing is, again, these things were found with weapons, spears, shields, and other things that they were supposed to be unburied with. And the red-haired giants were also supposed to be mining people. And they came up here for the copper mines and did all of that. And again, there's no reports of that kind of activity with the Sasquatches. There is some tool use, the rock throwing, and like basic primate tool use, but nothing more advanced than that. No real reports of fire or sharpening of sticks and stuff like that. So
Since you mentioned footprints before, I saw photos of footprints on your website, footprints of Bigfoot. Now we have these footprints, and I'm interested where these footprints begin and where they end. You would think that you just have to follow these footprints and then inevitably come to where these creatures are, right?
yeah, that would be the common thought there. But the problem is if you ever look for footprints like this in the woods, there is so much leaf litter and such a hard floor in the woods that it just does not lend itself to footprints. You have to look for these like on the edges of like water or very muddy lowland marsh areas. And in that case, you do find footprints occasionally. A lot of the ones that we have on our website were ones that we found, and they're all typically in low areas where there's standing water that leads to this mucky ground. And I mean, it does dry out eventually, you know, but they have these areas, and that's where we're finding the prints. You can find at the Hayden Adventure, they had a wet footprint that they actually found crossing one of their gravel roads. They heard something back there, they walked back there, and they found a wet footprint that is really fresh, and took pictures of it, and then it dried right in front of their eyes. So they knew that this thing had been right there, and that was before we had started investigating out there. But the picture is in his book and everything that is out there. So but as far as why we can't follow them, I mean, we only typically find like one, maybe two prints in a set. And a lot of people want to say that this is because they can go interdimensional or travel like that, and that, you know, it's possible. We don't have one that's, you know, in front of us to study. Who knows what we don't know? But I always say, you know, when people ask me what I think they are, I go by what I've experienced. I'm open to the interdimensional theory. I'm open to the UFO theory, or wherever these things are coming from. But I have never seen evidence to support that personally. A lot of people point to the orbs as, you know, these interdimensional things and stuff. And I've seen an orb in the woods. We were out at the Hayden Adventure doing a night investigation, and I actually saw a blue basketball size orb float through the woods. And I had my thermal camera out, and I was looking at it, and it shows up on the thermal camera, but it does not show up as a heat or a cold. It shows up like a soap bubble, just a round distortion of the image. And that's on our episodes. You can look at it on YouTube and everything. It's on there. So it wasn't hot, wasn't cold. I don't know what it is. And everyone that's out in the woods says, okay, well, we're out Bigfooting and we see these orbs. Well, you're out in the woods, right? So who's to say that your confirmation bias here? You know, you're in the woods, you're looking for Bigfoot, and you see an orb. So obviously this orb has to do with Bigfoot. You know, it absolutely does not have to do with Bigfoot. It can just be a completely different phenomenon that you're experiencing out in the woods. And again, you know, people say, well, we've seen UFOs and we've seen Bigfoot together. Well, if UFOs are abducting humans and other animals, cattle, whatever, who's to say that they're not also abducting Bigfoot? You know, well, we saw Bigfoot get off a UFO. Well, sure, maybe he got taken just the same as you did. You know, there's definitely these correlations that you see. And it's possible that Bigfoot was flying the UFO, or it's possible that Bigfoot was just being abducted, same as any other person that has an abduction story. So
I heard
Yeah.
this crazy story about this guy who went to the woods hiking with his wife. I don't know, can't remember. He said it felt like the earth was shaking, and he heard this crazy sound. And then they found footprints of a deer, like if a deer was running pretty fast. And suddenly you see footprints of a Bigfoot behind the footprints of the deer. And then the footprints of the deer ends and the footprints of the Bigfoot ends. So the theory is it appeared behind the deer, hunted it for a while, and then grabbed it and disappeared. Yeah.
And I heard there's another story too where the guy actually was hunting and he spotted a Bigfoot, and I think it was charging toward him, and he shot at it and it just like faded away like in a mist. So it's yeah, like you think interdimensional, they have their, I don't know, vortexes or other portals out there. I know like Burlington has a vortex that actually, if you go to certain places and you start taking pictures, your pictures are all swirly or all wacky with other crazy lights going every helter skelter through the pictures. I think Mary,
Mary Sutherland.
Yeah, she does
Yep.
tours. I don't know
That's
if she
exactly
does.
where we were.
Oh, cool. That's fucking dope.
Has anything ever been found that could be a sleep-in place or some kind of,
Yes.
I don't know, camp that could have been used by Bigfoots?
Yeah, there's actually been two pretty famous sightings of what they believe to be nests. Now, the great apes like orangutans, gorillas, and stuff, they're too big to sleep up in trees for the most part. They usually tend to sleep on the ground. So it's believed that these Sasquatches would also make these nests on the ground. And there have been two pretty famous areas that have been found like that. One, the most recent, was on Expedition Bigfoot. The third season, they found one, I believe it's up in Washington, and they found two nests that they believe were up there. And the Olympia project in Olympia, Washington, up on the Olympic Peninsula, also found several nests, an entire nest site. And they've been doing a lot of research on that site. It's abandoned now, but it was pretty fresh when they originally found it. And just, I think, this past year, they discovered a new nest site not far from the original one that they found. So they're these big, kind of bowl-shaped structures, kind of like a bird's nest on the ground, and they're full of like pine boughs. So they're very soft and springy. But other than that, I mean, we've never found anything. We've started some new theories this year as to where to look for that, because a lot of the times when we get reports and stuff, it's in like the hardwood forests and that. And these things are supposed to be like in more of the cedar swamps and stuff. And so we're going to be looking more for areas where you can find these pine boughs, the cedar boughs and stuff, as well as a running water source. So you have fresh water and you have the building materials for these nests. And we're going to start looking in areas like that more to try and narrow down the search grid of, you know, these things can be found anywhere, but they got to be sleeping somewhere, you know. So we're gonna try and focus it on that.
I'm sure you heard about the Gigantopithecus, really big ape that used to live in the rainforests of Asia very long time ago, and it was like, I don't know, 8 to 10 feet in size approximately, and I think up to 1,300 pounds in weight. Some think Bigfoot could be one of them.
I think it's definitely possible. The problem with Gigantopithecus, and I don't know like how many people realize this, is the only evidence for Gigantopithecus we have right now is a molar. And they have constructed this entire body story, you know, history of this creature off of a tooth. And that just boggles my mind. I mean, like, you know, we're talking about like dinosaurs and stuff, and you find complete skeletons that are, you know, fully formed in rock, in the shape that they're supposed to be and everything. And this tooth was actually found in an apothecary store, I believe, as a dragon tooth or something, that it was being sold as for like medicinal reasons and stuff. And a scientist walked into the store and found this thing and said, well, this is, you know, nothing like I've ever seen. And they found this and brought it in. And this whole creature was just based on this one tooth that they found. Now, granted, I mean, you can look at other fossil specimens and stuff and see resemblances that and kind of, you know, extrapolate and make these connections. But, you know, you have so much other evidence for Bigfoot. And, you know, you have the footprints, you have the hair samples, the sightings, the reports, all this stuff. And they refuse to look at this specimen, but yet they will create an entire animal off of a tooth. That just boggles my mind.
Government cover up, maybe.
What can you tell us about the communication of these beings? There are many videos out there where we hear sounds that are supposedly coming from Bigfoots. The Sierra sounds, for example. I just listened to them today.
Yeah, so the Sierra Sounds is probably one of the most famous ones, recorded by Ron Moorhead and his partner in the Sierra Nevada mountains. And so there's a guy, Scott Nielsen, and he's a cryptolinguist for the United States military. And his son wanted to do a research paper on either Bigfoot or Loch Ness Monster or something interesting like that. And so he's talking to his dad, Scott, and he says, well, what do these things sound like? And Scott says, well, let's look it up. So he goes online and finds the Sierra Sounds and he starts listening to it. Now, keep in mind, this guy's a cryptolinguist for the military. His job is to not translate, but transcribe, write down what he's hearing. So any language that he's told to write down, he makes like a script off of that, of what was said. And he's listening to these Sierra Sounds, and he says, "There's a language here." Now, obviously, he doesn't know what they're saying, but he dove into this. He approached Ron Moorhead, got the original tapes, all the tapes, listened to them straight through, and over time actually transcribed the entire audio of these creatures. And based on his research and knowledge and stuff of transcribing other, you know, human speech patterns and stuff, he heard what he believes is speech back and forth between these, and to the point where he can actually believes there's more than one, and there's a female and a male, and I think a juvenile as well in the Sierra Sounds. And he was able to like write down the conversations between these two creatures and even create like a phonetic alphabet of their language. It's really interesting stuff. He's a really interesting guy. He's got all kinds of documentaries and stuff. So if that's true, there's other people that have come forward with similar audio of these things. And in fact, I've actually heard this, what they call like the samurai chatter, up at Hayden as well one night. And there was two of them going back and forth on the ridge. Very brief. One said something, the other one answered back, and that's all I really got. But I've heard that chatter in person. I have also heard the whoops audio. We've captured that up at the Hayden Adventure as well, and we've captured howls that we believe are from these creatures. And the whoops and the howls are more of like the primate vocalizations. The orangutans use very similar vocalizations, and you have creatures like the gibbons who use the whoop sound that can be carried for up to, I can't remember, several miles, like 4 miles or 5 miles. You can hear these things throughout the jungles and stuff. So it's believed that you have pockets of these animals. You'll have a female and some juveniles living in each area, and they have their territories. And then the large male would travel between those territories to mate with the females as they become ready and willing to accept him. So that's kind of like how they believe that these things are. And then the howls would be either a communication of, you know, location or get out of my territory kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Now, just my 2 cents here. I have also often heard that experts have said that these sounds cannot be produced by humans. Anatomically, is not able to do so, so to say.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest, I don't think so. Like I said, just my 2 cents here. I myself have been a singer for many years, and I know what a well-trained vocal cord is capable of. Just remember, there are people who are capable of throat singing, or singing a very deep tone, and at the same time a very high tone at the same time. This is crazy. You should listen to it. It's really crazy. And many other vocal coaches and people who deal with such things also say the same thing. I think that these noises are reproducible by humans, but of course, I don't know the ultimate truth, and I don't want to be the guy calling fake here. No way. This is just my humble opinion on this subject. But like I said, I heard these videos many times, and this is really crazy. And it reminds me some kind of the old kung fu movies that I saw when I was just a child, when they communicate and talk like blah, 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 blah. But it's so crazy that it could be true.
That's exactly where you get the name samurai chatter, is from that. You know, as you said, it sounds very much like that. On your note of the how they communicate and stuff, the Scott Nelson, the cryptolinguist, said that the humans could not reproduce this audio, and it's not the tone, it's the speech pattern in the Sierra Sounds, that these sounds are actually being created both on the inhale and the exhale. And he said that the human were not able to do that with the vocal cords. So I'm not an expert, but that was how he described why they were not capable. And then the other reason is because a lot of the howls and that, from experience as well. I mean, I'm not a professional singer or anything like that. I'm not trained, but these howls are too long for the lung capacity of an average human to be able to reproduce that volume for sustained amount of time. It takes a very large lung capacity to make these howls and the sounds that we're hearing.
Tell that Mariah Carey.
Well, then Mariah Carey can come out in Bigfoot and howl with us.
All right. I was also going to ask you too, is there any popular sightings in Canada? Because I think because Canada has such a vast natural forest that that'd be a perfect spot.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if
there's
you know any personal stories.
I don't know any personal. I know there's a lot of sighting reports and stuff up in Canada, especially like British Columbia and again the Olympic Peninsula over there by above Washington and stuff. But as far as like specific sighting reports out of Canada, I'm not familiar with any that I could tell you.
Sure.
I believe the Albert Ostman case, isn't that up in Canada?
I think it might be. Yeah.
You know the one I'm talking about, the guy that got kidnapped in a sleeping bag and
Yeah.
got taken away, and the Bigfoot wanted him to mate with his daughter and all that stuff. That whole story. I think
Okay, it's getting pretty wild here.
Look it up. Albert Ostman. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I
I'm
think
pretty
I did
sure
hear
that was
about
up in
that one.
Canada.
That dude gets dragged in his sleeping bag and ends up meeting a bunch of different ones. So, but not,
The
I didn't
family
hear about
unit,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know if he wanted him for sex. That's pretty funny.
That's what he claims the
Oh,
bigger
okay.
the adult wanted him to mate with his daughter, and that was his story.
He
So
was using sign language.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of a shotgun wedding right there.
Yeah.
Let's talk
Oh,
about
this is.
some other cryptids.
I mean, you talk about the one in Germany.
Yeah, it's not specifically in Germany. It's in the French Alps and in the Bavarian Alps, and it's called the Tatzelwurm. Tatzelworm. I can show you a picture if you want to. This is the Tatzelwurm. The last sighting, I think, was 20 years ago. This is, of course, very old interpretation of it. It's this creature with like bird-like feet, and the head is like the head of a wildcat with sharp claws. Sometimes they say it's pretty small, some say it's pretty big. It's a crazy creature, and look at this thing. They say that it attacked hikers and people that roamed around in the area and bit them. Of course, like I said, there's an old picture, of course, like from the medieval times, but the last sighting is from 20 years ago, I think. Look at this thing. Imagine this thing standing right in front of you, looking at you. Don't bring death upon me. And he's like, oh, there's some really chunky legs you got right there. Crazy. This is the Tatzelworm. Have you heard about it?
I have not heard of that. It actually kind of looks like a dragon.
Yeah, and makes you think if stories about dragons,
Mhm.
maybe this is the origin.
There are so many different styles and types of dragons. Each country has their own versions of it, and that thing, definitely. I'm not familiar exactly with the German style of a dragon looks like, but that definitely has, kind of like the scale and the clawed footprints and stuff that would lead you to, follow along that trend.
Yeah.
It's very interesting when you look at like cryptids from around the world, and that different areas have very similar creatures, and they all call them different things. It depends on where it is, because before the internet, before people traveled and did all this stuff, they'd see something, they'd name it, and now you have the exact same creature somewhere else in the world, and they named it something completely different. But you have to look at all these different creatures, and you start seeing the similarities, like Bigfoot. Back to that, I mean, we have Bigfoot across the entire world. It's just named different things. And even, things like Mothman, if you look into that lineage and stuff, you have very similar things around the world. The Chupacabra even has relatives around the world. Different the Loch Ness monster, and then the lake monsters and stuff, you have those all around the world. So that's why it's very possible that a lot of these creatures could be, legitimate animals and stuff, because you have the relatives, the similarities, like other animals, like antelope species, large cats, the other things like that you find all over the world, bears and stuff like that. So we've gone out looking for the dog man, which is, obviously from Wisconsin. You have the Beast of Bray Road sightings, again, down by Elkhorn and Burlington and that. We've done some research into that. We've gone looking for it, but we have not found anything on it. A lot of witness reports and stuff like that but no footprints, no sightings, no thermal, nothing that I could put a foot on, that says, yeah, this is here. We are planning on doing a little more research in that. We have some more recent sightings that we're going to be looking into. We followed up on one over in Michigan last year, but didn't get anything off of that. We've also done work on the Mothman, the original sightings out in Point Pleasant. We went out there and did some work, and there's been a lot of sightings around Chicago, Illinois. And we spent some time down there doing research, talking to witnesses, and trying to figure out, if these things are real, where are they living, how are they living? Because Bigfoot, Dogman, the lake monsters, you have reports of them living, right? They're moving, there's young ones, they reproduce, they're eating. You have these natural things that people are reporting off of them. Creatures like Mothman, it just appears and hovers there. No one has ever said they were driving down the road and saw this creature that looked like Mothman eating a dog on the side of the road, right? And then flew away. You don't have those reports. You don't see like, well, I saw a 2-foot tall Mothman, so obviously there's a baby. You don't have those reports. They're all these same, very similar report creatures, very similar sightings. So it leads you to believe that these things are not the flesh and blood like other creatures would be. That if this Mothman is real and people are seeing it, it is possible that it is not something normal. It is interdimensional, extraterrestrial, or something. It's existing outside, or it's existing off of something other than what we consider normal food. And that would be, like these, some people have these like energy vampires, or stuff like that. There's these interdimensional beings and stuff that are supposed to feed off of negativity, depression, anxiety, and that. You have a lot of that in the paranormal realm. And it's possible then that these Mothman are feeding off of that, or something of that nature. So but even still, then that would be something that is not what we consider normal. It'd be the
Yeah.
paranormal. So
Yeah. What's that other cryptid in Wisconsin up north?
Hodag.
The Hodag. Yeah. Can you
Yeah.
tell Daniel a bit more about the Hodag?
Sure.
Yeah.
So the Hodag is we'll say that it's not I say this weird. It's not a real creature. And we're talking about Bigfoot and Loch Ness and Mothman like they are, but the Hodag is very much considered not real. It is a mythological creature. So what happened was, back in the days of the logging industry and stuff, these loggers would make up stories and tell tales out in the woods to pass the time. And they saw this creature that had the head of like an elephant and this long tail with spikes all the way down its back, dark green fur, and they saw this animal, and it was reported in a newspaper. This is true. And a guy by the name of Eugene Shepard went out into the woods, and he shot and killed one of these creatures, and he ended up bringing it back to town and showed it off. And I don't remember what happened to it. Something happens to this creature, and he decides that he wants to bring one back alive. So he goes out back into the woods, and he finds one of these creatures sticking out of a hole in the ground. So he takes a broomstick with chloroform at the end of it, and he puts it to sleep. And him and a bunch of his other logging buddies drag the creature out of the hole, and they take it back to his house. And he digs this big pit in his backyard, and he puts logs over the top of it, and he traps this creature in there. So then he ends up taking the Hodag out to the state fair and the festivals, or the county fair, I'm sorry, and showing this thing off in a tent. And you can pay a nickel, and you go in there and you see this creature snarling and growling at you. And he takes it back home. And word of this creature gets out. This is all true. Word of the creature gets out. And there are two very huge players that get interested in this. The first one is P.T. Barnum, the circus mogul, and he's like, if this thing exists, I want it in my show. And the second is the Smithsonian Institute. So both players are dispatched to Wisconsin to come and take a look at this. Well, word gets to Eugene about that these guys are coming. And right before they get there, it just so happens that the Hodag breaks out of the pit in his backyard and escapes. But Eugene Shepard decides that he doesn't want to let them down, so he carves this giant wooden log sculpture of this creature and puts it in the pit instead. Well, when P.T. Barnum gets there, being the consummate showman that he is, he realizes that this is just a hoax and a shenanigan and stuff. And he goes back to the East Coast and tells everyone that the Hodag is nothing but a myth. Well, I'll tell you one more thing, that the tent show was actually a giant puppet that Eugene's two kids operated, and he had a microphone and was like growling and snarling into it. So when you went in this, you thought that this thing was real. What happened is that this all took place right at the round of the time when Rhinelander was this huge logging city, right? And the logging industry was kind of fizzling down at this time, and a lot of the people were leaving the city, and the industry was going down, and they were losing revenue. And by bringing this in, he basically created a whole new revenue stream and a whole new life force for Rhinelander, that this tourist destination. And if you've ever been to Rhinelander, Wisconsin, you know that there's hodags everywhere. There's actually one on the shelf right back here. I can't reach it, but he's back there. And so there's this whole industry, this whole town based on this hodag. But again, the whole thing was a setup by Eugene Shepard, who was trying to gain publicity for the town. But again, you remember that before Eugene Shepard perpetrated this entire hoax, there was something that was seen out into the woods. And the common thought is that the hodag actually could have been woolly mammoths that were still around at the time, right when they were starting the logging industry and stuff up in the deep woods, and the glacial woods. And Rhinelander's pretty cold. Even March and April, it's still pretty cold up in northern Wisconsin area in there. So it's possible that what they were seeing was something out there, but it definitely was not the snarling toothed spiky tailed creature that we all come to know. There you go. That's the hodag.
No, that's an awesome story.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. No, I was gonna say, me and Daniel are actually just talking about if prehistoric animals could still exist today, like the one in Africa in the Congo.
It's
Mokele-Mbembe.
Yes,
Mbembe,
yes,
yeah.
that one. And then there's another like island in South America that they claim that pterodactyls still kind of roam and kind of flock to that area. Again, when you just mentioned the mammoth thing, it kind of just reminded me of that. Like, could certain things survived that long ago? And did the asteroid destroy all the animals at that time, or did some of them survive? Like you see, like the coelacanth, that one fish that's prehistoric, and then you see, well, the reptiles that we have today, they were still around with the dinosaurs. So like how they survive and the dinosaurs didn't, it is a big mystery. I was just wondering if you heard of any other dinosaur stories or any other prehistoric mammals that still claim to be around.
Yeah, there are still actually some mammoth sightings and T-Rex and raptor sightings down in Texas. There's
Wow.
very small, like upright lizard creatures resembling what you would think of like a Jurassic Park velociraptors running around in Texas. There's been some people that have them on their security cameras, and some footage of them like downtown running down the streets and stuff. So I don't know what's all about that, but as well as the flying pterosaurs, the pteranodons and other creatures like that. In fact, one of the guests on my show, Monday Morning Monsters, recently was Robert Kreider from Kreider Exploration, and he got reports right by his house of a flying pterosaur creature. And he was coming back from a Bigfoot expedition down south. He lives in New Mexico. I hope that's right. I think it's New Mexico. And he is coming back to his house from a Bigfoot expedition and saw one of the flying pterosaurs cross the road and then fly right next to his car.
Oh,
and that was a couple months ago. And he's looked into that, and the farmers and stuff in this area of New Mexico, they all know that they exist. They've even found nests with eggs, hatched eggs and stuff up on the cliffs there. And to the farmers, this is a very real thing. And as far as they do not like them because they come down, they attack their livestock and stuff. And it's less of a, oh my gosh, these things exist, as more of a get your gun, these things exist, we need to get rid of them.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as I said earlier, there must be a big population of it if they still exist, because can't keep a population alive with 3 or 4 specimen, you would guess. Where are they?
Well, any
Yeah.
animal, if you look at tigers or lions or anything, if humans get out of the way and let them do their thing, they will repopulate. So it just takes a small handful in a very remote location. The United States, there's a lot of it that's unexplored. And now, well, where are these things? Why haven't we been seeing these pterosaurs this whole time? Why haven't we been seeing Bigfoot this whole time? More and more sightings are coming out. Well, because these things have been put into such a small pocket. And as they breed, they expand and they need more territory. So this family unit goes off over there, this family unit goes off over there, and they expand their territories. When those territories bloom out, they need to expand. And as they expand out, they're crossing more and more into human populated areas. And that's why you're starting to see these things more and more and more. And with the encroachment on the woods and stuff for Bigfoot, these things have been sighted out digging through the trash behind malls, the food court dumpsters and stuff. There's reports of, I think it's out in California, there's a mall and the security cop heard some ruckus, drove around behind the mall, and there's a Bigfoot, jumps out of the dumpster and takes off.
Whoa.
These things are right there. You do not have to go into the middle of nowhere to find a lot of these creatures. They're right in your backyard. And they realize that they do not want to be caught. You any of these animals, they don't want to encroach on humans, because unless you're actively feeding them, which is a bad idea, they're going to avoid you. Any animal is, because we're scary creatures and do bad things to nature. So they're not going to want to interact with you unless you have food. And they're coming. They're right there.
That is.
I have another cryptid for you from Europe. If you want to
Yeah.
see it, you can share
Yeah.
the screen. Wait. What we have here is the
Mhm.
Gévaudan beast.
Mhm.
They said it roamed around in France. I think it says 1765 here. They say it killed around 100 people there, and it's almost like a wolf, but it's maybe a hybrid. It's much bigger than a wolf, and the head was strange, and the chest was very, very big, and the backside was pretty weak and small, and the tail was strange. But they said it killed a lot of people. It had a hunger for human flesh. It killed many humans, children, women, and farmers.
Yeah.
It's wild.
That one I actually have heard of. That one pops up a lot in the Dogman lore and stuff like that when you look at around the world creatures and stuff. But yeah, that one is definitely a unique case and stuff as well. I don't remember that one ever being like upright. It was always seen on all fours. It's like you hear like the Dogman cases or werewolf of it standing up, and that. I don't remember any reports of it being upright.
No.
But yeah, that definitely was a very unique canine. And
And we even thought too that a lot of these prehistoric animals could be hiding in our oceans, deep in the oceans.
oh yeah,
The fact that we only know 10% of what's down there, that just blows my mind that we know so much about our own universe, and we don't know anything that's going on in our own planet down below.
Let's change the topic a little bit. In the beginning, you talked about the paranormal. You told us that you were in a haunted house when you started. You're still into the paranormal, or
Mhm.
not anymore? Yeah. Do you
Yep.
have some paranormal stories for us?
Sure I do. I've done a lot of stuff. My haunted house actually was like a Halloween style haunted house. We had actors that jump out and scare you and stuff like that. But the attraction was in a haunted building as well. So for I think 3 years we operated out of this, and I was out there, almost 24/7, working on this, building it and doing the construction stuff. And I'd had the haunted house for 2 years prior to this. So when we moved into this building, we were setting up a lot of the sets and the scenes and stuff. And I there's two skylights in the roof of the hangar part of the building that we were in. And I was setting up these scenes, and I was going to do the scenic lighting of the rooms, right? But during the daylight and even late into the night, like 9 o'clock at night for us here, pretty late, it's still light coming through these skylights, so it's very hard to do. So one night I had to go out and do lighting, so I went there in the middle of the night, and I went in there by myself. There's security cameras all over the building for my sake, for if a customer goes through and hits one of my actors or something like that. So they're set up to watch the customers, not the rooms, right? So I know that I'm alone. I know there's no animals, no other people in this building at this time. And I'm walking into one scene, and it's a swamp scene, and there's these big dock floats around the edge of a pond, and then there's a big waterfall that falls down into this water, and there's the dock floats are big, like 1.5 by 1.5 styrofoam blocks with all these like fake ferns and stuff stabbed into them, and then there's these big 6-foot fake trees, like you find in a doctor's office or something, and they're all throughout this area. So I walk into the room, and I go to the far end of the room, and I'm looking back down at the whole scene, and there's only some very small pin LED lights in there lighting this up at this point, because I haven't done much work yet. I have a hat light, but it's not on. And one of these trees, I see the branch is just lightly bobbing like this. And so this building has 8-foot tall walls for my haunted house, and there's no air movement. In the summer, it is just dripping wet in there. So there's no wind. There's no reason why this branch is moving. So it catches my eye because it's the only thing moving in the room. And I'm looking at this branch, and it's just lightly bobbing like this. Like, that is so weird. So again, we had known this place is haunted and stuff prior to that, and we've seen things, shadow people and stuff in there. And I walked towards that branch, and I get about from me to the other side of that dock float away from it, and the whole tree starts violently shaking. And I take a step back away from it, and the tree lifts up and falls over the top of the dock float where I had been standing. And there's nobody there. The tree is backed up against like the waterfall, so there's 2 pallets standing on ends, as it makes kind of like the rounded backside of this waterfall for the scene. There's no way a person could be back there. So I hightailed it out of there. I left. And the next day I came back with some more of my workers and stuff, and we looked at this thing. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Weebles. They're this old toy. They're weighted on the bottom, and you can like tip them over and they pop back to standing.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So these trees have a cement or plaster base about that thick, right? And so when you tip it over, it's weighted and it flies back up. So it would take a lot of force to get this thing to tip over. Like, for us to do it and recreate it, we had to yank that thing to get it to fall over. And it had to go over a 1.5 foot styrofoam dock float to get up and land on the path where it was.
Crazy.
So that to this day is still my craziest paranormal experience.
Wow.
We've caught voices at that location. We have a little girl that says scary, and I'm scared. We've seen a little boy or a little child, I guess, shadow figure that will come and peek out around walls and stuff at us. I've been standing around the entire attraction as a 5-foot fire exit hallway, and I was standing in that fire exit working on a pneumatic prop, and I heard footsteps just walking down the floor towards me, and I'm again the only one there. So we've had a lot of experiences there. We've done a lot of other things. One of the coolest places we've got to investigate, though, was Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. We went out there, and we actually heard a cannon fire at about 2 in the morning.
Wow.
And a musket shot.
Huh.
And this was both in the area of where the night battle of Gettysburg took place. And it's really interesting, and it makes a lot of sense. So I had an IR camera, so it only shot in red light, so it didn't ruin your night vision stuff. So I'm taking pictures of this forested area that we were in, and I wasn't getting a lot, and the batteries in my camera died. I left the rest in my car, so I didn't have them with me out where we were. So I said, okay, I'm going to switch over to my actual white, bright flash photography camera. And I started taking pictures, and that's when we heard the cannon go off. Now, we had a guide there with us that was familiar with the history and, told us the stories and stuff. And he said, this is this makes sense because during the night battle, the way they targeted their opponents was watching for the flash of their musket fire.
Oh shit.
So here I am out there with this flash camera shooting into the darkness, and we get a cannon and we get a musket fired back at us. So that was really cool.
I would have shit my pants, man.
Oh, dude, I've been running. I'd be give me the fuck out of there.
Well, they didn't throw anything at me like the tree, so I was all right.
Oh, wow.